Recording is on.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome on this rainy, dreary morning here in Minneapolis. Thunderstorms out today, so I'm hoping everything's going to be okay with the internet. So if class just blacks out, just continue to enjoy in your pose and hopefully we'll pick up from there. So good morning, my name is Lisa and welcome to LisaBug Yin Yoga this morning. What I have for props, if you have them, are a strap and a block. And I actually have a blanket as well. Some of the poses, it might feel a little bit more comfortable in your body if you're on your knees or what have you, to have just a little bit of padding under your knees. A nice fluffy towel works well, or a little pillow, something like that. So what is Yin Yoga? If you haven't done Yin Yoga before, a description of Yin Yoga, it's sometimes known as yoga for the joints. So in a lot of our yoga poses, we do stretch the muscles, but in Yin, we hold it a little bit longer. And the focus is on lengthening and stretching through the connective tissue, the fascia that surrounds the muscles. And the goal is to give us nice freedom in our range of motion. It's a very calming practice, but there are three principles of Yin Yoga. The first one is to find your edge. And what that means is find your range of motion in your pose that suits you today. It might not be what your range of motion would have been yesterday or last week or a year ago, but what it is today without pain, without discomfort, a place that you can stay for a little while and relax. So that is your edge. It's your kind of that end range of motion that you have today in a particular pose. The second principle is to be still. And I think that one for many of us is the hardest one. So once you find your edge, you want to be still and try not to fidget around unless you really do need to move and get into a little bit more comfortable place. Try to stay as you are and just focus on the breath. So we find our edge, we be still, and the third principle is to hold the pose. So in a Yin practice, we might hold a pose for as short as 2.5 minutes, up to as long as maybe 8 or 10 minutes. So for today, we're going to be holding roughly about 2.5 to 3 minutes per pose. If you feel like you need to come out sooner, I want you to feel free to do that. If you're feeling uncomfortable and you need to bail, find something different, come out, just rest or lay on your back, something like that. If you want to hold longer and you're watching this class later on YouTube, pause the video and stay in the pose for up to that 8 to 10 minute time if you'd like to. So that's the beauty of Yin. So let's begin, just comfortable seated position, and close your eyes. Find a nice long spine and just scan your body from head to toe, noticing how you are feeling today. And as we begin to center and ground this morning, we honor our bodies. And we honor what is right for us today. So most of you are home on your own, so there's no competition between you or anyone else in the room. Just in your own space, in your own place. Eyes can remain closed if you'd like, or gently blink them open. We're just going to stir the spine around into the pelvis. Just noticing how your lower back is feeling today, the shoulders, the hips. And allow this movement to be very meditative and relaxing. A little bit of an escape from the rest of the world today, a little bit of escape from stress, an escape from your to-do list. Let's put that aside for the next 60 minutes. And then pause whenever that timing feels right, and reverse, taking it the other direction. So this movement will look a little bit different for each of us. Just allow it to feel right for you. Do what feels good in your body. If you need to add a little bit more movement in the shoulders or the neck, and our exhalation occurs as the body is folded forward, and we inhale when we can expand through the rib cage. Finishing this last circle, come back to neutral. Our first yin pose is a wide-kneed child's pose. So if you have a hard surface, you might need a little something under your knees. And also, depending on your flexibility, you might need something under your head. So either a block or a pillow, or we can use our hands as well. So coming onto your mat, take your knees fairly wide and your big toes are touching behind you. Sit your hips back into your heels, reach your arms out nice and long to the mat, and then let your forehead just come down. If it doesn't touch the floor, that's where the block or a little pillow comes in handy, just to place the forehead onto a block. Now your arms can be active, reaching out long to really open up through the armpits. Or you can soften your arms and just let them slide back in, relax your shoulders so there's no work there. And if this bothers your knees to sit way back on the heels, a couple things you can do is to place your block underneath your seat, so it helps you to sit on something while you're coming into that child's pose. Or you can lift your hips all the way on top of the knees and make this more of an anahatasana, which is our puppy pose. So once we settle into this pose, we focus on the breath. And today we'll create an equal ratio breath, breathing in and out through the nose, allowing the rate of the inhalation to match the rate of the exhalation. So our first principle of Yin Yoga, we find our edge in the stretch. We be still, as completely still as we can be. And we hold the pose. And while we're holding the pose, we try to stay present in our body, in our mind, and in the breath. So rather than letting your thoughts drift off to other places, continue to notice how your body feels. And especially if you're feeling anything uncomfortable at all, pull yourself up out of the pose and find a place of comfort. And when we're breathing in and out, that equal ratio breath, maybe you'll count the breath, inhaling 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 counts. And then exhaling that same 3, 4, or 5 counts. And we do our best to relax here in these stretches. So just check your body to make sure that you're not tightening anywhere or resisting the stretch. And the purpose of this pose is to open up the hips, to soften through the glutes, to extend slightly through the lower back, the lumbar spine, to create length in the armpits Good range of motion in the shoulders. Let's take one more breath in through the nose. And then either out through the nose or you can open your mouth slightly and exhale with a sigh. Then slowly use your arms to pull yourself up. The hips come up away from the heels. We close the knees in a little bit. And then just move your hips from side to side, looking towards the hip and to the other side. Now, after we hold those yin poses, we create just a little bit of movement to let the blood flow back into the muscles and the joints. Come back to center and we'll thread the needle. So hips are over the knees here, and I'm going to take my left hand and thread it through. You can start with whichever side you'd like. And I'm laying my shoulder, left shoulder, and the left side of my head onto the mat. Now with this right hand, I can reach it out, stretching through the lats, or I can use my fingertips to gently push down into the floor, and I'm creating more twist by opening up through the mid-back and rotating. Or I can gently rest my hand back behind the back, which gives this right shoulder a nice stretch. So we find our edge, making sure we're not feeling any discomfort in the left shoulder, right shoulder, the neck, the spine. And once we find that edge in the position we like, close your eyes and find stillness. And notice whether or not there's an equal amount of pressure into both of your knees. Sometimes when we twist this, we kind of rock our pelvis over to one side because our spine is turning that way. So re-level off your pelvis and your hips. And if your mind begins to wander, bring it back to the breath. Perhaps counting, inhaling 1, 2, 3. Exhaling 3, 2, 1. Or any pace of the breath that suits you. Be patient with yourself in these poses. It's the stillness and the hold that allows the pose to work its magic into the connective tissue. You might feel your body sinking a little deeper into the stretch as time goes on. And if that left shoulder is talking to you underneath your body, you can slide it out at any time and come back to your child's pose. Let's take one more breath here, or thread the needle on this side. Inhaling deeply and fully, and exhaling. And very carefully we slide this right hand. Use the strength of that arm to slightly press up, sliding that left shoulder out. Planting that hand to the mat. Let's move through cat and cow. So drop the belly down, let the chin slightly lift, the tailbone rise. Exhale up into cat stretch. 2 more, inhale cow. Exhale cat. And last one. Coming back to your neutral spine, gently slide now the right arm underneath the body, and you're turning until that shoulder comes down. Left hand can reach out long to the top of the mat. We can use the fingertips to push down into the floor and create a little more rotation. Sometimes that feels really nice, as long as we're not torquing or stressing the spine. Or that hand can revolve behind the back. Sometimes you can feed your fingers right into that little space between the hip and the thigh, the hip crease. Sometimes it's nice just to play around with the pose a little bit as you're exploring your edge and what feels best. Then once you're there, we're still and we hold. Now you might immediately recognize some imbalances between your left side and your right side. And that might be in the flexibility of your arm, your shoulder, or along your spine, shoulder blades, the mid-back. And just noticing without judgment, that's where you are today. And notice if the weight is equal between both knees. Try to just relax your feet into the floor. Your lower legs are heavy. Check in with your neck, make sure there's no pain there. The position of this pose puts our neck in rotation as well as lateral flexion. And sometimes that can be contraindicated for some of us that have neck issues. Come back to that equal ratio breath. As we have a few more breaths here, see if you can perhaps sink and relax a little bit more. And one more nice full deep breath in. And let it all go. And slide that left hand to press it into the mat, dragging the right arm out from underneath you. And place both hands to the mat, push back to a child's pose. Forehead comes down. And we'll take both hands and bring them next to the sides of the thighs with the palms facing up. And let the shoulders just roll forward. Noticing sensations you feel in your shoulders, maybe a little bit of warmth, a little tingling. And then we'll prepare for our next pose, which is toe squat. So with toe squat, this is a big stretch underneath the bottoms of the feet and toes. So as you press yourself up, you may need props. So for me, I need a little block to sit on. So I'm going to bring my block behind me. And then we tuck our toes underneath. And sometimes you have to actually manually bring those toes underneath, especially the smallest toe. And then sitting back onto your block or onto your heels, just notice how this feels underneath the bottoms of the feet and the toes. And you'll know right away if this is too much for you. So some options we can do is bring our hands forward and take some of the body weight out of the bottoms of the feet. Or we could even bring this pose all the way up here and just hold that stretch underneath the bottoms of the feet with our body elevated. Now, if you're taking this one, or if you're back onto the heels or on your block, we can take the hands and bring them behind, and I'm going to grab my elbows. So I have right hand on the left elbow, left hand on the right elbow, holding this nice stretch through the fronts of both shoulders. And this is a nice one to do because when we were in our thread the needle, we had the shoulder across this way. So this is going to bring us into an opposite stretch for the shoulders. If you're pretty flexible here through the chest, you can place the palms of the hands in prayer, but this is behind your back, our reverse prayer, reverse Anjali Mudra, and hold. I remember the very first time I did toe squat. I thought, oh my goodness, there's no way I can even hold this for 10 seconds. So it can be very intense. So do what you can, find your edge in any of those positions. Close your eyes. Try to remain still and breathe. So if you feel like you need to relax your feet for a couple of breaths, you can always then come back into the stretch and try to hold it again. This stretch is so important to lengthen under the bottoms of the feet, the plantar fascia, a place where many of us have had or currently have issues with plantar fasciitis. into that slow breath, inhaling and exhaling, equal ratio. If we find a comfortable edge and we can remain there in stillness, it's amazing how much release we can feel. If you need to bail from this pose, come back to your child's pose and allow your feet to flip back over and just relax there. And we understand that our yoga practice is a journey. There's never really a specific goal in Yin Yoga to hold a certain period of time. All of us are different. So we listen to our body. It tells us a story, lets us know when the chapter's coming to an end. Let's take one more breath in and release it. So first, if we have hands behind our back or clasping our elbows, we'll let that go. Circle the wrists a couple of times each direction. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down a couple of times. And then if you're seated on the block, you can remove that. And then turn the tops of the feet to the mat and sit back into your child's pose. And just notice how your feet feel. They're probably saying, thank you so much for getting me out of that position. But also, thank you so much for taking such good care of me this morning. Our next pose is called Sphinx. And it is a back bend. And I'm just going to use my blanket underneath the frontal hip bones for a little bit of cushion. So we'll draw our body forward, lengthen the legs back behind, and lower down to the belly. So with our Sphinx pose, it depends on how much it feels comfortable for you to stretch your lower back in terms of where you place your arms. So our goal is to just slide the elbows right underneath the shoulders and then lengthen the spine and let the belly sink down. So if this is too much of a back bend for you, you start walking your hands back underneath you a little bit more, which drops your chest down a little bit to the floor. So we find our edge by just experimenting with where the elbows can go to find a good back bend. And then we just begin to notice what we're feeling. Oftentimes we begin to slump here and collapse into the shoulders. So the active portion of this pose is to press down into the elbows and the forearms and to lift upward out of the shoulders, to extend long through the neck. So in a restorative yoga practice, we wouldn't really have any activity, any muscles anything holding us up. But the difference between restorative and yin is that we can actually have some activity in our yin pose. So if that lower back is saying that's too much extension, slide those elbows either back underneath you, or you can even slide them forward here to lower yourself down. And you can take the fists and rest the forehead. The legs back behind you may be a little wider than hips distance apart. The legs are long. You can slightly turn your toes out here. And come back to our equal ratio breath. We find our edge. We're still. We hold the pose and find the breath. Also be aware of your neck in this pose. So we want to be sure we're not dropping the head down and collapsing here. At the same time, try not to let the chin rise up too much and jet forward. So lengthen the back of the neck, the front of the neck, both sides of the neck, and slightly draw the chin in. Stay fully present in this pose, just noticing how you're feeling. And when we are still in a pose, we're still diagnosing whether we need to come out. So if you're feeling pain, then the principle of being still does not apply. You need to come out. But if you have an itch on your cheek, then maybe you can decide, I'm going to be still and not scratch that itch until it's time to come out of the pose. So you have to decide what you're going to address and what you're not going to address. Feel your hips sinking down into the floor, the chest lifting and shining forward. And we'll take one more deep breath in through the nose. And release it. So slide your palms back down toward you to lower your belly down. We'll turn our head to the right to set the left cheek down onto the mat. And let your hands just come behind, they're next to the sides of the body. And the shoulders roll forward. This is our reverse Shavasana. It's just a passive stretch through the neck. And we're only holding a few breaths on each side. The shoulders slightly roll forward. The toes can turn in, the heels out. Noticing the stretch and the rotation of the neck. And ever so slightly with the muscles of the back, lift up. Turn the head to the center for just a moment. So the forehead is pointing straight down to the floor. And then slowly turn the head, setting the opposite cheek down. And then relax the shoulders. You might notice a little difference here in the range of motion of your neck. And try not to clench your jaw so your teeth are slightly separated. The jaw is relaxed. And begin to activate the upper back to slightly lift the chest up. Bring your head right back to center. Hold it there. Then rotate right and left 2 times each direction. Coming back to center, slide the palms underneath the shoulders and use your arms to gently press yourself up. And back to child's pose. Our next pose is half butterfly. So we'll be coming to a seated position, rising up. And if you're fairly tight in your hamstrings, you can either sit on a blanket or a block, or roll a little bit of your blanket underneath a knee. So I'm going to take my, on camera, it'll be your left, right knee. Bring this in here. The sole of the foot comes to the inner thigh. And then we can use a strap here, if you'd like, for this stretch. So if you're using the strap, place it under the sole of the extended foot, maybe the ball of that foot. And then our goal is to take the torso and face it towards the extended leg and relax this bent knee. And then we'll just bring our upper body close to the thigh and hold this stretch. So using the belt is one option, but a lot of times in Yin, we want to relax a little bit more and just let gravity take us forward. So your other option is to just let your body sink, turning your palms up so that you're not pushing down with your hands, and relax through the head. So where is your edge in this pose? Notice what you're feeling. And what's kind of the tightest place here? So I'm noticing my lower back quite a bit. One side of my lower back more than another. That's interesting. I'm fairly flexible in my hamstrings, so I'm definitely feeling this down the back of the leg, but not a lot. I'm noticing tightness in the hip on the bent knee side. So I want you to file in your mental files what you're feeling right now on this side, so you can compare it when we get to the other. Let gravity continue to pull you closer to the floor, or use that strap to create length down the back of the leg. Come back to the breath. Come back into the body and sensations you're feeling. If your mind begins to wander and a thought pops into your head, just quickly address it and send it along its way. And we'll take one more breath here. Exhale it completely through the mouth or nose. And then allow your arms to help you press yourself up. And then adjust your position to the other side, lengthening out the knee that was bent. Bringing the opposite sole to the inner thigh. Strap if you'd like to use it under the bottom of the foot, and then turn. Lengthen the spine. Let your fingertips guide you down, and then lift the palms up and find your edge. And oftentimes your edge changes through the stretch as we hold. Notice what you're feeling on this side as compared to the other. For me, it's almost identical in the sensations I'm feeling. Lower back pops out to me first, and the side of my lower back that's associated with the bent knee. A little bit in the hamstring, more in the hip. And whenever our body is folded, it's hard to breathe into the lower belly. So allow yourself to breathe into the back side of your lungs and into the sides of your rib cage. And we find that equal ratio breath. Breathing in, maybe 1, 2, 3. Exhaling 3, 2, 1. In a restorative practice, we would have our body completely supported here. So we might have a pillow underneath the belly and chest, supporting us on the thigh, and definitely something underneath the forehead so that we aren't holding our head up or contracting any muscles in the body. So you can always make these yin poses a little bit more restorative and a little bit more supported anytime you'd like. Maybe you're feeling your body sinking a little deeper in these last few breaths. And we'll take one more breath in. And exhale, let it go. Use the hands and press yourself up. Come onto our back for reclining pigeon to stretch the hips. So a nice comfortable place. If you need a pillow under your head, something to make you comfortable, would be wonderful. Take your time to roll back onto your back. So with our reclining pigeon, let's start knees bent, feet flat, and feel both of your hips pressed into the floor, your shoulders as well. And take your right foot up off the floor, flex your ankle, and then cross that foot over the top of the opposite knee. And we can kind of press this knee away from us just for a moment to get the hip into a nice figure 4 stretch. Now for you, if you are feeling enough stretch here, you can stay right where you are. Or we can reach through the legs and pull the knees up to the chest, interlacing your hands behind your thigh. Or you can also reach your hands over the top of the knee, pulling it in here. So wherever you feel it the most and is the most comfortable for you. And then close your eyes and notice that nice hip opener, a reclining pigeon. This is a wonderful stretch to do every day to release the hips. And to make this stretch a little bit more restorative, you could do it up against the wall and place the foot of that lower leg right up against a wall surface so that you could completely relax and feel supported here in this stretch. If you're needing a little bit more intensity, you can bring this into cradle the baby. So I would take my elbow crease, wrap it around the bent knee, and my other elbow crease under the bottom of the foot, and interlace my hands together here. And then my opposite foot can find the floor with either a bent knee or slide it all the way out to straight. So definitely more of an intense position for our reclining pigeon. As we continue to hold our pigeon, two options. If you're really enjoying this hip opener and you want to stay here, I'd invite you to remain for about another minute. If you'd like to add a twist, we can place that left foot down onto the floor. Keep your right ankle crossed over your left. Push down into your left foot, lift your hips up and shift them over to the side, and then rotate until your right foot finds the mat or a block, and both shoulder blades are pressed into the floor. And come back to that equal ratio breath in and out. It's a calming breath, it's a grounding breath, a rooting breath. Helps us to stay fully present in our pose. Spirit, mind, and body. And we'll take one more breath, whichever pose we're in. Exhaling completely. If you're in your twist, you can reach and lift that right foot off of the left, bringing the feet back to the floor. And then open your feet a little wider, knees are wide. Just begin to come through windshield wiper legs back and forth. One hip lifts and then the other. And then we'll prepare for our reclining pigeon, bringing the feet back, hips distance apart. Pick up the left foot, flex the ankle, cross that ankle over the right thigh, and then press the knee open just a bit. And then just notice this side. Is this going to be a place to remain for the entire pose? Is this your edge? Where we can reach through, pull the knees up, either underneath the right thigh or over the top of the knee. If this is your edge, stay here. If you need more intensity, wrap it into cradle the baby. And if you do have a wall space at home and you can place that right foot up against a wall, it's nice. You can let go of the hands and relax the shoulders and be totally passive into this stretch. And just scan your body for any areas you might be holding on to tension. Sometimes we begin to shrug the shoulders up, so just pull them away from your ears. Lengthen your neck. Make sure your head is in a pretty neutral position. So not tipping the chin too far back or pulling it into the sternum. Notice any differences you might be feeling from the right to the left side. And then choose if you really enjoy this figure 4 reclining pigeon and you'd like to stay here, remain as you are for just about another minute in our yin pose. Or we can drop the right foot down to the floor, keep the left ankle crossed over the thigh, push into that foot to lift your hips up and shift them over a bit towards your left side, lowering your left foot down to the floor and relax in our twist. Whenever we twist, we can keep the head neutral so that eye gaze would be straight up at the ceiling. Or you can choose to turn your head the opposing direction from which the knees are falling. Arms are just comfortable here, either by your sides or maybe our goalpost arm position, or reaching above the head. We're here in our final few breaths of our yin practice. Just scanning your body, noticing how you're feeling. And we'll take one more breath in. And let it go. Uncross that left ankle from the right thigh. Bring the knees back up to neutral. Separate the feet a little wider than hips distance and drop them back and forth into our windshield wipers. And then choose a side that you'd like to roll to for a few breaths. And whichever side that is, lift your arm above your head, lift your hips up, roll to the side. You can make a pillow with that arm, or if you have a pillow underneath your head, and then just let that top arm relax. And then we'll gently press into that hand to rise up from your reclining position, to finish in an easy cross-leg pose and a seated meditation. And press your thumbs at your heart center. Lengthen the spine, gently draw the shoulder blades back. Lengthen your neck. Come back into the breath, in and out through the nose. And we pause to reflect on our practice today and all the good that we've done for our spirit, mind, and body. Then bring your thumbs towards your forehead, pressing into the third eye center for positive thoughts for the remainder of our day and our week ahead. Bring your thumbs to your lips for positive words of affirmation for those around us and for ourselves. And bring your thumbs to your heart again for positive actions in all that we do. And the light that is within me honors the light in each of you. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me today for our yin practice. I'll pause the recording and I'd love to hear from you guys and see how you're doing today.